Hello everyone, my name is Horváth and this is the OpusCorner, and today we are going to talk about this recording. So this is the recording from Karina Canellakis, who is conducting the Netherlands Radio Philharmonic Orchestra, and they are performing on the CD Béla Bartók's two pieces. One of them are the 4 orchestral pieces and the other one is Concerto for Orchestra. So one very well-known piece and the other one, the 4 orchestral pieces, are much less played and much lesser known. This video is actually long overdue. I've been doing this video for a while. That's why you will see different color grading in the video, or different setups, different clothes on me, different hair. So don't be surprised. Yeah, unfortunately it took a while until I finished this video. I decided actually that I establish some kind of rating system, and in the shorter review I will just give my critique and review about the recording and giving maybe some examples, and in the end I will suggest some recordings. And in the longer one, in the extended version of the videos, I will put a lot of information about Bartók himself or the pieces, or about his way of composing and how that has been developing throughout his life. So the extended version will be full of very interesting informations, quotes from Bartók himself, folk songs which he collected, for example. So really interesting stuff. But that video will be probably 1 hour long. So I suspect maybe not everyone has the patience or the time to watch that video until the end. So there is the shorter version only with the review about the recording, some examples from the piece on the piano which I'm presenting, and then some recommendations to some other recordings. So in my rating system I came up with 3 different categories. The first one is the intrinsic value of the recordings. It's basically about the performance, but I didn't want to do subcategories like sound, like performance and so on, but I put this whole into one category because I anyway feel that it's very hard to separate them. It doesn't make so much sense to me to separate them. I handle them as a entity, and this is the first category. The second category is the presentation of the disc. I know everything nowadays is almost only on streaming platforms, but I prefer to have physical things and to touch the thing, and how it is presented physically. It also says something about the recording, I believe. So I bought the CD, and I just prefer to have it. And the third category is the X factor category, so to say, anything which kind of stands out or what is interesting about the recording, if any. So if the program choice is interesting, or how the program is put together, or anything in the booklet, or really anything which is not so usual or common, that would be the third category. So I try to do my review going through these 3 categories. Karina Canellakis was born and raised in New York, and her parents are also musicians. Father is conductor, mother is a pianist. So he was born and raised in a musician family. And first he played the violin, and later she started to play in the Berlin Philharmonic Orchestra, where Sir Simon Rattle encouraged her to pursue a conducting career. She started learning conducting at the Juilliard School in Manhattan. So in 2016 she won the first prize of György conducting competition, And since then, her career as a conductor really skyrocketing. Since 2019, she's the chief conductor of the Netherlands Philharmonic Radio Orchestra, but also the principal guest conductor of the Berlin Rundfunk Orchestra and also the London Philharmonic Orchestra. Her repertoire includes masterpieces from Baroque till 20th century music. She also conducted Wagner operas, also presented Janacek operas in this season. So her repertoire is very, very broad. Let's start with the first one, with the intrinsic value of the recording. Of course, probably this is the one which I can talk the longest, because I believe also this is the most important. So how the recording feels, and when I'm listening to the recording, what thoughts and emotions it evokes from me. And basically, as I was doing this video, I was listening also many other recordings, so I could also compare. And I have the feeling that even though the intention of Karina's are usually very good, and I really believe that she knows what she's talking about, so to say, with the score and with the notes, there are certain nuances and details which are crucially missing of the performance. And because of this, I think I would rate this recording 3.5, 4-ish. I believe really just there is much more room and much more detail to play with in the music. And also I think it's just essential to have been playing many other things from Bartók, or knowing the folk language or the Hungarian language more and deeper. And in the examples I will talk about the nuances, but many times feels a bit like on a painting there is a lot of water paint and there is no detail for the people on the painting. So feels like an impressionistic painting, especially the 4 orchestra pieces. She also talks in the booklet, because she wrote the booklet, so I would say that that's already an X factor thing, which is very nice that she took the time. I hope she wrote it and not someone wrote it in her name, but I believe, and mostly actually very informative, and she goes through the pieces explaining a bit what's happening in the pieces in each of the movement. It's understandable also for people who are not musicians, and but it can be also interesting maybe who are musicians but don't really know the piece. So it's just nice that she wrote the booklet. So even though she knows, I think, really what's happening in the music, the materialization of these ideas and thoughts and emotions are a bit vague, I would say. So not precise enough, either in the hierarchy between the instrument groups. I will give some examples for that, or some rhythmical patterns, or like weight things within the bar, or really just how the musical text move, and also sometimes just really two similar notes after each other can be as a general critique towards the disc. So if there is something which looks like repetitive, it's mostly not repetitive, and it has different place, so it has also already different function. So it would be nice to find somehow for each and every similar looking note its place, and a bit put the notes more in 3D place, so to say. So our first example is from the Preludio, from the 4 orchestra pieces, where the harp is playing an E major scale, and then the strings are holding an E major chord. The polarization is the horn voice, which is playing actually a Freeg melody. So la da do re mi fa sol la. That's a Freeg, and the two comes together. So of course, like this, it sounds a bit weird, but it's very nicely melts together. And the question is how you do the proportions between between the different layers. And Bartók indicates that the harp and so the E major, so the E major should be more like a background color, and this is the engraved. The Freeg is the engraved people on the painting, and it starts with an upbeat. That's also actually important. And as I mentioned before, that Karina is taking a bit too impressionistic approach to these pieces, comes alive when this is very, very present and too much in the front. I would say the proportions I the opposite ones that they use, and yeah, I mean, it's hard to imitate on the piano, but which also arrives like this, and not so then I might think that this is a 1 and this is a second beat. It was also a bit confusing. So the words just slipping together sometimes because the articulation is not as itten már egy nagy ház. Unfortunately, it's a bit generic. That's why when I'm listening to the recording, I don't have to be, or I can't be always very focused on the recording. So I know recordings which I will also recommend that really grasp my attention from the very beginning, and they just don't let my attention to fall or just wander around, but it just drags me into the music. And this happens actually sometimes in the recording. I don't say that it's like totally boring. I wouldn't say that at all. I'm just simply missing this tension or tension which pulls you in throughout the movements or throughout the pieces. Even though places where there is a lack of energy or it's a resting part, I believe there one has to work even more, so to say, to project these kind of things, especially through the recording. Yeah, so this is a live recording. I mean, usually live recordings can be risky, but they can be much more energetic than as a performing artist. It's really different to play in a concert to audience. There are people. There is connection between you and the audience, as opposed to if you are sitting in a studio completely alone in the studio and you are trying to create the perfect version, so to say. And it always involves like avoiding risk a bit. It's just unavoidable, I think, the difference between the two. So this is a live recording, and even though if it's a live recording, I'm lacking sometimes the energy. And I would say between the two, I have the feeling that she has a better connection with the 4 orchestra pieces than the concerto. So all in all, I think I would give this recording 3.5, because I really believe that there is much more details to carve out, so to say, from the music. Presentation. So presentation, this is the cover. I hope the camera focuses on it. So this is the cover. This is the portrait of Karina. It's a nice portrait of her. I don't know how it's connected to Bartók in any way, or the orchestra, or to basically anything. I don't find it very interesting, I have to say. It's very minimal. Also inside there is the booklet. So she wrote there is the program, and then comes basically the text, what she wrote about the pieces, and little credits, and that's it. So the presentation, honestly, I don't find it extraordinary. I don't remember, but in one of the version I will put like old LPs covers. They were so amazing. I mean, back then they were so incredibly creative, and nowadays, maybe because really no one buys CD, or buys CD by the artist and not really by the composer. That's also probably can be a reason. I give it a 2. I'm sorry. And the X Factor, I really happy that she wrote the booklet. I believe every artist should do it, as every artist should compose his own cadenzas for Mozart concerti. So this is almost a must for me, but I know it's extra work. How is it written? It's a bit generic, so it's also not terribly interesting to me, because I know the pieces and I know the music and the context around the music. But at least she took the energy and the time, and also they are performing 4 orchestra pieces. There are not so many recordings of those pieces, so that's already like half and a half X Factor. So I would give like 4.5, I guess, or 4.5. Yeah, so let's say 4, because I'm very critical. So my recommendations for the 4 orchestra pieces, actually one recommendation is with Miklós Erdélyi, who is maybe a bit less known conductor from the 20th century. It's an older Hungaroton recording, and he conducts the Hungarian Philharmonic Orchestra. I really love the dramatism and the energy in the recording and the fine details. Second move in the scherzo, it's a tiny bit slow to my liking, and to the metronome number of Bartók, but otherwise it's really a nice recording. I like it a lot. And as I mentioned, Pierre Boulez, who the beginning of his career
and the relation with Bartók was not very smooth. But then he started to really appreciate Bartók's music, and he recorded 3 times this piece, in 77, 93, and then later in 2000. And the middle one, I believe the most interesting, which is with the Chicago Symphonic Orchestra. It's worth to listen and compare the recordings with each other. Certainly interesting, just to spend time with these nice recordings. And for the concerto for orchestra, well, it was recorded so many times by so many great conductors and orchestras. It's probably the most popular piece for orchestra by Bartók, and most of them played. And I mean, my picks go again a bit towards Hungarian conductors, who are in this case mostly emigrated from Hungary. I mean, Fritz Reiner, for example, in 55, I believe that's the first recording of the piece with the Chicago Symphonic Orchestra. That's a really great recording. I mean, Zoltán, Doráti, Ormandy, Fricsay, but I think I prefer very much actually Doráti's recording with the London Symphonic Orchestra from 67. I think I really love almost everything in the recording. I leave some space to things which I don't exactly like, or I don't exactly agree with, but still it's really an amazing recording. And also another great one, which is on YouTube, so you don't even need the streaming platforms, is Zoltán Kocsis recording from the 1990s. And I mean, that has amazing overview of the piece and drive, and especially in the fifth movement, like you feel life, if everything comes alive. And it's, I mean, this is actually really amazing that Bartók composed this piece almost, I mean, not on his deathbed, but he knew already that he was very sick, and such a last movement written, which is really, it's just a beautiful take on. We might think that he was such a pessimistic person and very hard to reach, very hardly reachable, but he still loved life and cherished life, and he wanted to be optimistic about life, so to say. All in all, I was very happy to listen to this recording. I am sorry that it took so long to do this review and to do this episode. Really watch the extended version, because that's full of really nice information and really interesting stuffs. And I I hope the next one won't take so long. The next one I will now try really to catch up and do it much more frequently. And I believe I will now stick to this format and this rating system, and then doing the extended version with more information, but probably not always. But so the next one will be a solo piano CD, and by a very in artist, so to say. Nowadays he is very much in, and yes, I am very curious about that. I haven't listened to it yet, but I'm very curious about that. But for now, if you can listen to this recording on streaming platforms, or you can also just buy the CD from Pentaton directly. They will ship it to you.
And I will put all the links to my recommendations. They are also really nice. So if you have time, you can compare. And yes, and I wish you all the best and see you soon in the next episode.